Here is how to make super easy sci-fi terrain. I've been playing a game called Necromunda a bunch at the local game store, and I'm lucky enough to be playing on terrain made by JD in the Sump Sea. I also recently saw a video by 52 Miniatures showcasing some cool, colorful buildings, so I've been pretty inspired to give terrain a go. I'm not that experienced with scratch building terrain, so I wanted to try to make the easiest terrain I can without overthinking it and just get her done. And that is with boxes. Shout out to my grandma for giving us mustard museum and peanut boxes every year. These will make for great large buildings. I also found a bunch of these smaller boxes laying around. This is one of the few cases where being a hoarder is actually a positive. I cut off all the box tops in case I wanted to add LED lighting in the future. I grabbed the hot glue gun and glued a few boxes together to make more interesting shapes. I also glued some plastic granny grating on the roofs of some of the buildings. This stuff is like $1 per sheet at Michael's and comes in different cell sizes to get a little variation in there. I laid everything out, and at this point I was pretty pumped. I started to smooth out some of the obvious cardboard box edges with spackle, but as I was doing it, it felt like it was starting to stray too far into the too much effort for a low effort build zone. I really want to try to keep this as easy as possible. I kept some of the boxes all natural just to see what they would look like. With all the box buildings made, it was time to paint. I tried to make the painting as easy as possible too, but as always, things didn't go smoothly. I bought this textured spray paint, hoping it would evenly color everything in a nice rusty color with a bunch of texture. Turns out it really only sprays the texture without any coloring. It also sprays like the boxes owed it money. While it didn't do exactly what I expected, the texture it gave was great. Nonetheless, I switched to a slightly textured Rust-Oleum black spray paint and a brown spray paint. If you can find a brown textured spray paint though, you might save yourself a few steps, and is what I'm going to do in the future. Honestly, this step was pretty scary because I like the color variation of the raw boxes before they were spray painted, and I wanted to revive that vibe. I let the textured spray paint dry for a few hours and then brought out a big brush and sponge to add the color back to the buildings. I normally use very muted colors, but this time I wanted to try something more vibrant. I used some hobby paints for this, but if you plan on making a ton of buildings, I suggest some cheap craft paints. I made sure to leave some of the brown base coat showing through to act as weathering. You could also spray paint the buildings in whatever color you'd like, and then sponge on some brown for weathering if that's more your speed. I dry brushed the grating with a silver metallic paint. That's it. So easy a caveman could do it, if the caveman had a bunch of boxes. With a few old boxes, some hot glue, and a little paint, you have a board that can be pushed together, mimicking a packed sci-fi hive town. Put these on a battle mat, and now you're really cooking with gas. Thanks to Skirmish Mats for sending their Industrial Zone mat. Their mats are super high quality and lay flat. The Industrial Zone mat is one I've had my eye on for a hot minute now, and is perfect for games like Necromunda, which I've been quite into lately. Also, the squares on the battle mat fit the 2x2 grid that Necromunda uses, which is really useful. There are tons of little details that add to any game you play. Use the link and code in the description for money off your order, and to help the channel. I think the buildings look great as is, but for those of you that have an FDM printer, here's a way to add a lot of detail very easily. I went on to Thingiverse and looked up greebles. There was a very nice selection of building bits to choose from. I used some silver overture filament and printed a bunch of these out. Printing in a color like silver makes it so you don't have to paint them after. Again, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. Some of the bits had very thin layers that let light shine through. So, with a fresh blade, I cut openings in the box and glued the bits on over the openings. This way, if I ever get around to adding LEDs, the boxes will really come to life. You could also use tea lights or puck lights for this. I also made a few signs to glue on as well. Let me know if you'd like a custom sign tutorial in the future. If you don't have a printer and want to add more detail, you can add some graffiti using acrylic paint pens. These are the cheapest ones I could find at the craft store, but the big thing is you want acrylic and not oils. This way the acrylic paint dries quickly and doesn't react weirdly to the underlying paint. Adding little tags here and there really helps sell the realism. I let the guys I play Necromunda with add graffiti to add their own color and personality to it. Even plain boxes with a ton of graffiti would look pretty darn good if you don't have a printer. Not too bad for a bunch of buildings. I can see myself making a ton more of this stuff. This is one of those low effort, high reward projects that anyone can do. Thanks again to Skirmish Mats for sending the industrial mat. Use the code and link in the description to get one for yourself and help a guy out. Alright, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Big shout out to my Patreon supporters. I greatly appreciate the support. There are other ways to support too if you find my videos time-saving and useful. Feel free to subscribe, like, and share the video if you got anything out of it. Alright, bye-bye.